Good afternoon, Facebook friends and family. My name's Elizabeth Rich. I'm the commentary editor of Education Week. We're here at the Mayflower Hotel in Washington, D.C. for the 5th annual Leaders to Learn From event. And this is where we come together to celebrate great district leaders from across the country. And we're lucky enough to be joined today by Renee Pryor, who's from the class of 2016. And Renee, you're the supervisor of evaluation programs and professional development in Lincoln County, Tennessee. Can you tell us a little bit about your district?
Yes, Lincoln County is in the southernmost middle part of Tennessee, near the Alabama border. It's a small district. We have 8 schools, 7 with accountability, around 300 teachers and 4,000 students.
So it's kind of on the smaller size.
Much smaller size, yes.
Okay. So one of the things that we wanted to talk to you today about is this idea of teacher evaluation and teacher leadership. And those two things seem like they're on two parallel lines that might never intersect.
Yes.
I think many teachers can't imagine that somehow the evaluation process could really lead to leadership position for themselves. And I know in your state, for example, you've had some evaluation reforms, and I wonder if you, before we get deeper into the conversation, could you talk to us a little bit about what those changes have been and how maybe your role has changed in the process of evaluation?
So about 6 years ago, the state of Tennessee changed our evaluation system to what we call the team evaluation system. And we went from evaluating teachers once every 3, 5, or 7 to 10 years to 4 times a year. The rubric itself is extremely extensive. It's 15 indicators, best practice in instruction, in planning, and also in professionalism. So we went from really, I can't even say it was an evaluation system. It was just kind of one of those walk in, make a couple of blanket statements, write a few notes, and that was the end of it. So really for teachers 6 years ago, it was very difficult to move from the style of evaluation then to what we have now. And it's taken a good 5 or 6 years, I think, for them to feel as comfortable with evaluation as they can. Not that anybody ever likes evaluation. Evaluation is difficult. But what we've learned using this new rubric is because the evaluators and teachers have a model really for what best practice looks like, then we have seen improved instruction in our classrooms.
And how have people been able to manage the time demands of going into classrooms 4 times a year times, how many teachers did you say you had?
It's 300.
Right. So that's a lot of time on a principal, obviously more time from you. What does that look like?
And if you're a professionally licensed teacher, after 3 years you become a professionally licensed teacher, then it's 2 per year. It's not 4, but for apprentice level teachers it is 4. It is difficult to get in classrooms. For me, that's my job, and that's the reason I love my job. I get to be in classrooms every day. I get to see best practice in classrooms. I get to see the craft, the teaching craft every day. For principals, I will tell you that it is very difficult because they have so many other things to do in their day. There's so many administrative tasks that keep them out of the classroom. And for me, I like to say it forces them into the classroom. That's where they truly want to be. Administrators want to be in the classroom, but they get taken away by discipline, parents, meetings, budgets, all of the planning that goes into running a building. And they know what's best. They know they need to support their teachers, but they get pulled away from that. And so by having it mandated, then it really forces them to plan it and be there. And it's not easy. I will tell you that administrators today have it really hard, and I do feel bad for them as well because the demands on their time, it's really unfathomable. People just really don't understand what they're asked to do now.
And what was that process like in the beginning for principals? I mean, did you have people banging down your door and calling you up and saying, "Ms. Pryor, how am I going to do this?" I mean, what did that look like?
Yes, and for some schools it was very hard. In our district, we have an assistant principal or a curriculum coordinator for every building and a principal. But in districts where they had 100 teachers and just 2 people, they really had to be very strategic. And I can't say they always did it very well because it was so hard to do that. I think we're doing a better job now, but at first I can't say that even we did. I think we did a great job, but we had a lot to learn, and we over the years have done much better.
And I'm curious, before we even get talking to the teacher part, like how much work did you have to do with your principals in order to, help them figure out in a very demanding schedule, what this would look like for them? I mean, were most people on board and able to sort of figure it out, or did you have a lot of professional development for them? Like, what did you do?
So, and that's the hard part. I have to say that although I really support this evaluation process, that it's unfortunately sometimes state departments just roll things out and expect us to do it with no preparation, no planning. And then this is one of those situations where there was no prep for teachers, there was no prep for principals, and so I think that was really the big outcry. It was, why can't we do something with planning and prep before we have to really own it? And that was more the cry, I think, at the first was we don't mind doing it and we want to do this. It's best practice, but we need to have training on it. And so we did spend a lot of the first year in the state. Our prior director did hire me as the specialist over evaluation. It was one of very few districts in the whole state that did that. And so I could monitor the planning and the scheduling of evaluations, and if they needed me, I'd come in and evaluate with them, and that's what I did. 120 evaluations a year at least is what I've done for the last 6 years.
Wow.
So I'd fill in some gaps for them. I'd co-observe with them. I helped evaluate with them to ensure fidelity. The co-observation process has been wonderful. And then other supervisors now in our district also evaluate. So at first it was just me. Now all of the supervisors have to evaluate.
And how did you manage that all by yourself?
Well, it was a small district, and so that was just my job. At the time, 6 years ago, that's what I did. Now I've branched out into a lot of other jobs, teacher leadership, professional development, teacher incentive fund, all those things. So it's not as easy for me either to get into the classroom anymore. But at the time, that was my focus, and that was just a wonderful opportunity.
So we did a video with you for last year's leaders event, and you said something in that video that I thought was great, that I mentioned to you when we talked earlier, which is you can't expect unless you inspect.
Exactly. And so no one likes evaluation. I don't like to be evaluated.
Of course not.
But
no.
I need to be evaluated because if I want to get better, I have to get the feedback I need to say, try this, do this, this was great, work on this, enhance this is something to make your craft better. So when we look at best practice in the classroom, for years and years and years before this evaluation system, there was nothing, really no help, unless you had a really good, strong administrator that understood curriculum and assessment and best instructional practice to help the teacher get better. So we had teachers that thought what they were doing was great, and some were doing great things in the classroom, but others were not. And so when we walked in, they've been teaching 20 years, and for the first time, someone said, you need to improve.
Wow.
That was really difficult.
It's eye-opening.
It was very eye-opening. And so for them, it was a struggle, and still is to some extent. But when you look at the support, we gave them, then that's where I guess you can't expect if you don't inspect. You have to go in, you have to look and see where they need. Some teachers are level 5 teachers, 1, 2, 3, that's our score, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're level 5 teachers every day. But they still like for us to come in, or administrators especially, and see what's happening in their classroom. And if nothing else, just to say, great job. You're doing a great job. I love to see your kids learn. So that's where that came from.
So to get to really the heart of the matter, which is this idea that you can really, through evaluation become a teacher leader, that really intrigues me. That's a big part of our Education Week audience and our Education Week teacher audience. First of all, how do you define a teacher leader, and then where is this intersection of leadership and evaluation?
So it's really difficult to I guess define a teacher leader because it's so multifaceted. But when you think about teacher leadership, teachers that are that do a great job in the classroom, who are successful in the classroom, who have the will and the skill to be great teachers, but they're willing to step outside their four walls and to share what they know and to share best practice and to collaborate with other teachers, and then to really support the great things happening in their school and also out in the district, sometimes even in the state, because we have teacher leaders that work at the state level as well. And they're willing also not to just help other teachers, but help their administration do their jobs. In evaluation, you ask that question. When you're in classrooms and you see best practice, when I was there and I saw all of these great things happening, it's like, okay, great, I'm scoring a lesson, giving feedback, you're doing a great job. If I just saw it and left it as it was, then who else knows about it? A principal in their building knows that teacher's a great teacher, but he's not seeing other teachers, so he doesn't know that what they're doing is shareable. And so when you're in the classroom, I would see teachers in one building and say, hey, that's a really great practice. Where did you learn that? They'd tell me, would you mind sharing that? So we'd bring them to the district. We'd have a PD. They would share it with other teachers. I would have a PD on questioning or feedback to fit the needs of that rubric, and I'd have 4 people show up. But I would have a teacher come, and I'd have 40 people show up, because teachers learn best from teachers. They want to hear from their colleagues. They might have been a little scared of me. I think they liked me probably, but they knew when a teacher was presenting that whatever they were doing, it must be good stuff, and they wanted to come see it. And so that's where the teacher leadership piece came from. When you see teachers that have the will, the skill, the talent, and you can call on them to support district work, school work, state work, it's powerful.
And how do you see your teaching force changing over the last few years in terms of, I'm sure they feel more empowered.
Yes.
And what does that look like?
It is amazing when you talk about PLC, professional learning community. You think about a classroom, you think about a group of first grade teachers or sixth grade teachers. But in our district, I have pictures in my presentation today of teachers coming together at the district. We have district PLCs, and so sixth grade teachers across the district working on curriculum and assessment and looking at data and sharing and creating together. So we won't have one school or 2 schools that are doing great. We're trying to share the good stuff with everybody.
And do you see changes in the classroom also?
Yes. Yeah, I do. I actually see it's the collaboration piece. Very few teachers shut their doors and ignore other people now. We have pockets, where people just feel more comfortable in their own space. But for the most part, it's not. It's a place where everybody is willing to say, hey, let me help with that. Do you need help? I need help with that. Can you please come show me or share with me?
That's really nice. And I guess, I would ask you as we start to wrap this up, is there advice out there for other district leaders, principals who are struggling with this evaluation process? Are there any pearls of wisdom you would like to share with them?
We don't have that much time. We don't have a whole lot of time, do we?
Exactly.
It's taken 6 years to get where we are.
Yeah.
I think we probably did it because we had a person focused on it, or a group. We were all focused on it in our district 6 years ago. But I think really when you roll these kinds of things out, there was a district last year that actually contacted me in another state, and he asked the same thing. He said, first time ever rolling out, give me some help. And I said, first of all, training. Train the teachers first. We leave the teachers out. They're the last ones to know sometimes.
Right.
Train your teachers first. Roll out the rubric. This is what it looks like. This is how we're going to score. Let's practice with it. And then for your administrators, you have to give them support. You have to first work through the process with them, and then offer them support in what the indicators look like. Because if you have let's say you have a principal that's taught at a high school, but now he's a K-8 principal. He's never been in a kindergarten classroom. How does he help a kindergarten teacher when he doesn't understand the curriculum, the standards, the assessment pieces for that age child? So at the district level, we tried to offer support in what does phonics instruction look like? What is best practice in classroom management for a kindergarten class as opposed to a high school class look like? So you have to make sure you're giving that kind of support too to those.
Right. And as you said to me when we had an earlier conversation, if you're a big district, just make sure you have at least 10 of you.
Oh, maybe many more. But it's doable, I believe, but it is more difficult.
Right, and I guess what you're saying is also that don't make it an us and them situation. It's more of a community effort. And
I do believe we feel that way. I told you, evaluation's never easy. But I think teachers, when they feel like they're getting supported, they appreciate the feedback they get from evaluation, and if it's good feedback, that's great. If it's not, they're still upset about it, and I don't blame them for that because they deserve that.
Yeah. So is there anything else before we sign off that you want to make sure that people out there know about this role of evaluation and leadership?
I just think that it's important that everybody has the opportunity to get into those classrooms. I think that the district folks forget sometimes they need to be in those classrooms. The state folks really forget what it's like to be in classrooms, and I think until you're there and you see what's happening in those classrooms and how difficult it is not easy. My son's a teacher. He's a first-year teacher, and I worry about the future for him because there's so many, the expectations there are so different than when I started teaching 30 years ago. And I want him to be successful, and he's a great teacher, but I don't know if 30 years from now he'll have the stamina that I still have. And so, I just think that we need to make sure we're in there and we always are seeing what's happening so that we support them the way they need to be supported.
That's great. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us on Facebook Live, and tomorrow we'll be back with Angela Duckworth. I hope those of you out there who are interested in Leaders to Learn From will look at our stream tomorrow at edweek.org. I'm Elizabeth Rich. This is Renee Pryor, and thanks very much. Have a good afternoon.